Up next is Mr. Timothy Liu. Mr. Liu is a research associate at the NVIDIA AI Technology Center based in Singapore. He works on applied research projects, mainly in natural language processing, and is an NVIDIA Deep Learning Institute certified instructor for NLP and Multi-GPU training. Today, Mr. Liu will provide an introduction to NLP and BERT. Mr. Liu, you may begin.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Timothy from NVIDIA, and today I'm here to give a short 10-minute introduction to natural language processing and a deep learning model called BERT. If you would like the slides, they are available at the link below. I'll flash the link again at the end of the presentation. Today's presentation is a simple one. Yeah, as explained, I'll just be giving a short introduction to NLP, a type of neural network called transformers, and then specifically we'll be talking about BERT. So what is natural language processing, or NLP? NLP is basically a field of computer science that aims to design systems that can understand human language. So the goal of this is to allow computers to be able to understand and process programmatically large amounts of textual information. And the reason why we want to do this is to enable closer and more natural interactions between humans and computers. So examples about systems like this will be things like Siri, that you can talk to your phone and then it will understand what you are trying to ask for. NLP is also a very interesting field because it generates many useful ideas for other related fields that involve sequences. For example, there are many NLP techniques that have been applied to things like genomics. So this is pretty interesting. So what is an example of a task in natural language processing? So a specific example we would look at is called text classification. So in text classification, we have a bunch of input data, for example, emails, that we can pass through an NLP model. And the NLP model will return to us labels that indicate perhaps what the type of email that it is. Is it spam? Is it a promotion email? Is it a social email? And so on. If you have used Gmail, this type of model is present inside the Gmail mailbox that helps you sort your email into the different categories. So what's the purpose of deep learning in natural language processing? We can actually use deep learning to build really powerful natural language processing models because deep learning is really good at learning very good representations of information. So in a typical deep learning model applied to natural language processing, we have our input data, which is perhaps the raw text, which is passed through an encoder, which is a deep learning model, and then it will produce what we call an internal representation, which is a powerful numerical representation of the input data, which is then passed through the final layer, which consists of these linear classifiers that will then output the correct category of prediction. So if we look back at this example of text classification, the deep neural net will take in the textual information, which are the emails, build its own internal representation of it, and then the final layer will produce a classification that tells us which category the email belongs to. So specifically, there's a particular type of neural network called transformer networks. So some of you who have a bit more experience in deep learning might have encountered the use of recurrent neural networks to basically do natural language processing. Transformers are a different approach that basically don't use recurrence, but make use of another mechanism called attention. The entire model is pretty complicated, so I'll only be talking about one small part of it, which is the attention mechanism. On this slide, you will see a animation that shows a visual representation of what the attention mechanism inside the transformer network is doing. Essentially, every single token, which you can take to be a word, so that's the point, that's the thing that my highlighter is over. Every token is compared to every other token, and then the model will learn how to generate what is called an attention score between the tokens. So what the attention mechanism does is that it looks at one token relative to every other token, and then builds what we call a combined representation of all the tokens. As it turns out, this particular mechanism is really powerful and allows the transformer network to be used very effectively for sequence modeling and natural language processing. So this is the core mechanism that allows the transformer network to perform so well at natural language processing. So one particular transformer network that is of great interest is called BERT. So BERT stands for Bidirectional Encoder Representation from Transformers. It is a deep learning model that was released by Google in 2018 and built on the initial ideas from the Transformer paper, which was titled Attention is All You Need and released in 2017. BERT is interesting because it has demonstrated really good state-of-the-art results on many NLP problems, and particularly also in many languages. Hence, it's a really powerful and interesting model, and many people in the industry are interested to apply BERT to a wide variety of NLP problems. So what makes BERT especially interesting is how it can be used. So the BERT model can be trained in two main stages. So the exact same model is put through two different phases of training. The first one is what we call pre-training. So pre-training takes place on a large system with a very large corpus. So this corpus can be something like the entirety of Wikipedia or the entirety of a very large web crawl. And during this pre-training stage, the model is trained in what essentially is a self-supervised manner, where the model is trained to reconstruct the input sequence. For example, in BERT, BERT takes in a sentence which has words that are removed, and then it aims to generate the missing words. So this self-supervised training is what we call the pre-training stage, and essentially primes the model to be able to understand a language in general. In the second phase of training, or what we call fine-tuning, that model, which has been pre-trained on a large, say, English corpus, is then fine-tuned on what we call a task-specific corpus. So this task-specific corpus can be something like the email classification task we saw just now. We could be training it to classify emails specifically. So to reiterate, the BERT training takes place in two stages. The first stage, which is pre-training on a very large general English corpus that allows BERT to build its understanding of the language, followed by a fine-tuning stage, which allows BERT to learn how to do a task specifically. For example, text classification to classify emails into different categories. The really valuable thing here is that you would have realized that the exact same model can be pre-trained one time and then fine-tuned on different task-specific data sets and be able to perform different tasks. So this is why BERT is extremely valuable. And although pre-training is very expensive, it only needs to be done one time, and that single model can be used for many downstream tasks and exhibit very good performance. For BERT, there are actually two main BERT models, which have different sizes or basically different number of parameters. There's a smaller BERT base, which is a 12-layer deep neural network with 110 million parameters, and BERT large, which is a 24-layer deep neural network with 340 million parameters. So these represent the two main BERT models that were released by Google in 2018. And typically, the BERT large model has better performance, although at the cost of higher computational requirements. So this is just a final diagram to illustrate. We can basically place BERT in place of any NLP model and use BERT to do text classification. So the BERT model, after being fine-tuned on a email classification data set, will be able to take in emails and return to us the labels that explain to us which category the email falls into. So that is all. I finished in about 9 minutes, so I guess that's on time. I'll leave this slide here a while in case anyone would like the slides. And if anyone has any further questions, I'll be happy to take them now, or you can email me at your own leisure. Yeah, thank you. I'm done.